Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're breaking down an important contracts case, Bailey versus West, decided by the Rhode Island Supreme Court in 1969. This one's all about whether someone can recover payment when there was never actually a contract in place. Let's dive in. So, what really happened in this strange horse case? West bought a racehorse, but when it turned out the horse was lame, he refused delivery. Then the trainer tried to return the horse, but West insisted he didn't own it. The horse ended up being boarded at Bailey's farm, and Bailey thought West should pay him for all of the boarding costs. So Bailey started sending bills to West, but West kept refusing and saying, "That's not my horse, I'm not going to pay." So that led Bailey to sue West for payment. Well, the case talks a lot about how West kept insisting this wasn't his horse and refused to pay Bailey for board. But what's the actual legal issue here? That's, can Bailey recover the cost of boarding the horse from West, even though West denied ownership and never actually agreed to pay anything under some form of contract law? And what the court held was no. And here's why. No express contract was ever formed between the two. So West never actually agreed expressly to pay for any boarding or to actually even have him board his horse. And then the court moves on to a second point. There was no implied in fact contract either. So a contract implied in fact still requires mutual assent, which we'll talk about later. And West consistently rejected responsibility, so there was no meeting of the minds, and hence no implied in fact contract. Third, there was no quasi contract either, which is also called implied in law. And a quasi contract allows recovery to prevent unjust enrichment. But West was not enriched here. He didn't want the horse, he didn't accept the benefit, and he even told everyone that he wasn't the owner. So, what is mutual assent? We said an implied in fact contract's a contract that's inferred from acts or conduct of the parties, but it still requires mutual assent. But what does that actually mean? Mutual assent just means that both parties in a contract agree to the same thing in the same way, which a lot of people basically say is a meeting of the minds. And so in this case, West denied responsibility for the horse, denied ownership, and so no meeting of the minds happened where it would be, you board my horse, I pay you. The court also talked about two other types of contracts. So, what is a quasi contract? What type of contract is that? Well, it's actually not a contract at all. A quasi contract's just a legal obligation imposed by courts to prevent one party from being unjustly enriched at the expense of another without any actual agreement or contract. And so unjust enrichment is just when one party unfairly benefits at another's expense. The law doesn't want that to happen, so the quasi contract comes in to help out people who were unfairly compensated. It's an equitable remedy. And for an implied in fact contract, you need mutual assent and intent to contract, even if it's not written down. But for a quasi contract, recovery only happens when one party is unjustly enriched at the expense of another. Since neither of these applied here, Bailey lost. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. And if you want me to do another case brief, comment it down below.